So this session today is called From Brainstorm to Brilliance, Unleashing the Power of AI in Your Creative Workflows. It is sponsored by Designlab, and I am one of the mentors at Designlab. So I'm a longtime creative director and teacher at Academy of Art formerly, and also an author of a book called Explorations in Typography. And one of the ways that I got so good at using AI tools was because I've been embarking on a visual art career as an AI artist, and I was using Midjourney at first. Now I use a variety of tools, but including Midjourney. But so I'm also an AI artist. So you can find me at carolinadabartolo.com. My book is at explorationsintypography.com, or on social media, pretty much everywhere. I'm under Caro DeBartolo. If you want to see some of my AI artwork, it's on Instagram. It's mostly on Instagram, other social media channels too, at Caro DeBartolo. So that's a little about me. And then a couple of little rules of the road for the session today. Please stay on mute. I guess everybody doesn't have the option of doing anything else. And then your questions are certainly welcome. You can just put them in the same chat. There is a question function in this format, but we'll just use the chat for everything. If we have time, we'll have Q&A at the end. I would say we will most likely have time, but sometimes these things go over depending on how the AI behaves today. And then this is a safe space. Please be mindful and respectful of other people's opinions. Today, this session is sponsored by Designlab. So thank you for Designlab for hosting. For anyone who's not familiar with Designlab, it's an online educational organization focused on helping new and established designers build their careers in digital design. So if you're interested in taking your design career to the next level, go to designlab.com/courses, or you can just reach out directly to the admissions team at admissions@designlab.com. Okay, so let's go over the tools that I'm going to be covering today in our session. And there's 3 different tools I'm hoping to have time to show you today. Gemini is the first one, which is a text-to-text tool. And then Visual Electric, which is a text-to-image tool or a image-to-image tool. So you can also make images from other images in Visual Electric. And then the last tool that I'll show you probably fairly quickly, because it doesn't take too much to learn that one, is an upscaling tool, which is called Topaz Gigapixel. So we'll go over those 3 AI tools. First, Gemini. Gemini is Google's version of ChatGPT. I like it a little bit better. I like the UI of it is much nicer. And you can find it at gemini.google.com. And you just have to be logged into your Google account, and then you can use it. There is a paid version, I believe, but I'm pretty sure you can use it. I haven't had any trouble. I haven't paid for it. I haven't had any trouble asking it a bazillion questions. So what is Gemini good for? So Gemini kind of is a very handy little companion to anything you need to write, making anything that's long into something shorter. So long form text into a series of bullet points, or just a shorter text, a summary, or taking a series of bullet points, like just some random thoughts you might have, and turning them into a long form text. Also, you can just use it once you have a text. You can use it for spelling checking and grammar checking. You can ask it to proofread your text for you. I did try it for translating for a student whose first language was not English, and she reported that the translation was much better than what she was getting with Google Translate, so the AI is a little smarter. And then also, if you had a long list of something, you didn't want to have to open up a spreadsheet and put them in there and alphabetize them and then get them out of there, you could ask it to just take your list and alphabetize it. So I've used it for that as well. So any kind of ideating, you can say, hey, I need an idea for this and that, or, I need fake persona names. I need some placeholder text. Boy, back in the days when I taught typography, would have been nice to be able to just generate placeholder text on any subject and kind of, given that to students. So that was a tough one always to get, with some placeholder text to play with. So it's much better than lorem ipsum, right? Then it's going to be in whatever language your design is in. It won't be Latin Latin. It won't be fake. It'll actually have normal length sentences and paragraphs and stuff like that. So really nice for placeholder text, in my opinion. Also combining multiple texts into one, so you can pour in quite a lot of text, and maybe from 2 different documents or 2 different sources or 2 different versions of something, and say, hey, can you pull out the best ideas of both of these and turn it into one text? You can also get a rewording of it. You could make something more formal or more casual. You can also take something that you've written that's long and make it shorter, or something's long and make it something shorter. So all kinds of things like that. And yes, changing tone from more casual to more formal is another option. Or even there's a command that I'll show you in, or a filter that at the bottom of Gemini's replies that allows you to make something simpler. And what I noticed with that is that it doesn't necessarily make it shorter, but it uses more simple language, less vocabulary words, for example. You can use it to help you write letters, cover letters, or just thank you letters, or letters that you want to, letters that have a little bit more high stakes, for example. I can check your letter for you. You can use it to help you write your resume or parts of your resume. You can use it to write your bio or bios for people, for personas and so forth, that you're using in some UX research, for example. You can use it to help you write your case studies that you want to put in your portfolio. You can show an image, and you can ask it to tell you what this image is and give you a caption for it. So it's kind of handy for all of those things. You can also ask it its opinion. So you can put some text in there and say, what do you think of this? You can ask it questions. Sometimes, you can also do a Google search for answering a question as well. But, Google search is going to show you somewhere, usually show you somewhere on places on the web where that question might be answered. Whereas this will just give you an answer sometimes with some context about, where it came from. That's the other nice thing about Gemini, is that it actually usually gives you some context and tells you why it answers you in a certain way, why it has edited your text in a certain way. For example, why is this letter that you gave me, Gemini, better than the letter that I entered in the first place? And also for planning, a lot of people use it for trip planning and so forth. So, but any kind of planning of any kind, it can help you organize your first, second, and third things to do. So some sample UX research workflows that you could do with Gemini. You could get ideas. You could get ideas. That's true. You could just say, hey, I need an idea for something, and a new app that I need to build for my course that I'm taking at Designlab, for example. This happens to students in Designlab all the time. And you could just get ideas. If you did have an idea already, like if you wanted to do a travel app, then you could get some user interview questions for people to answer regarding a new travel app. So you could go from the questions, then you could ask it to also make you a full script of your full interview. So you can, like I say, go from bullet pointed text into a full script. You can also pull in your transcripts of your user interviews and turn it into a summary of users. I put in parentheses here about first names only, because sometimes if you do use first and last names, like if you made up either fake first and last name for some kind of a persona, or you actually used your real interviewees' first and last names, a lot of times it reacts to that and says, sorry, I don't know that person. The great thing about Gemini, in my opinion, too, is that it will not give you private information available on the web somewhere about a private citizen. So if somebody by that name, recently posted on LinkedIn, it's not going to know about that. So anyway, it's kind of nice that way. So you just have to use first names only, or even just take the names off and just call it, a woman from such and such a place or something, for example. You can also generate your story and your panels for a storyboard if you're doing a user journey of some kind in a storyboard form. And you can generate a user persona, like a fake name, a short bio for the person, a quote. A lot of this requires some creativity when you're writing, and it can take a little bit of brain power, which a lot of times it's kind of busy work in a certain way that you have to come up with the language for all these things. So it's just super helpful to have all these kind of things laid out for you. You do not have to agree with it. You can edit it once it gives you, but it gives you a starting point. You're not looking at a blank page to get started. So it's super helpful, I find, for all these things. And then a few tips and best practices for using Gemini. You will have a variety of stuff that you'll end up using it for. So over time, I mean, I already have a lot of chats with it. So keep your chats organized and name your chats. It'll give sort of a paraphrased name to like the first part of the discussion that you have with Gemini. It'll start to organize your chats for you. But I kind of like to rename them and make sure I know what I'm looking at, because it can end up being a lot of different chats. I recommend you ask Gemini to do one step at a time, not complex tasks or multi-step tasks. So for example, if I did have a user interview transcript, say I had 4 user interview transcripts, I might ask it to do just one at a time, just so it stays clear. And then from those 4 bullet pointed lists that I might get out of, the key points out of each user interview transcript, then I might say, okay, now I have these 4 users, here's the key points. Now take that and make that into a storyboard for me, or whatever, or make that into a persona for me, for example. That might be the next step. And then be sure to read the 3 drafts that it gives you, because every time you ask it a question or you respond to something that it says, it will give you 3 different drafts. Once you reply to the draft that you pick, then those 3 alternatives go away, because of course, if you change the trajectory of the conversation, you can't go back to the alternative answer. So don't forget to read those, because sometimes there's some good little nuggets in there and some text you might want to copy paste and just save. Because the other thing that's great about Gemini is that sometimes it's just giving you like a nice phrase or a thought or a set of words, the right vocabulary word to explain something, the right order of things in a paragraph. And so sometimes it's just super helpful to have something to help you with that. Use the filter button to adjust Gemini's tone and length. There's a little filter button at the bottom, which I'll show you. And then don't forget, you want to iterate and edit Gemini's responses to customize it and refine the voice, especially if it is, for example, a letter, and you intend for it to be your own voice. So you don't want to just use it straight up, out of the can. I wouldn't say. I usually use it as a starting point, or as a way to kind of check that what I wrote seems right, is spell checked and grammar checked and has the right punctuation in it and so forth. So yes, you can, once you do, finalize, you can always ask it to read your edited text for a spell and grammar check. And then last but not least is be nice to the AI. They say that these tools all work better if you're nice to them. So, I never try to have a fight with it, but one of the things that they say is that it likes to be told thank you, or oh, that's great, or, just to be spoken to in kind of a humane, kind way. So, up to you how you want to do it, but it usually, for me, I feel like it's been so very helpful that I do want to be nice to it. So I always say thanks, because it's kind of just natural to say something like that. Next tool I'll show you is the image generation tool called Visual Electric. This is an image generation tool that AI image generation tool that is designed for designers. So you'll see that the UI is also really nice. I should have put the little nice UI sticker on this one too. And it works very similarly to Figma, in that you have a canvas and you kind of have an infinite scroll in all directions on your canvas. So I'll show you how to use this one and how this one works a little later. And let's see. So what's Visual Electric? Text to image and image to image AI good for. So generating storyboard panel images, so the little sketches that you usually need for your storyboard, that's always painful for people. If you're not an animator or an illustrator already, to be able to generate your own storyboard images, kind of really handy. And not something that's going public, so it doesn't usually used internally, just to sort of help you get your UX research done. So they don't have to be perfect, but they sometimes take more time than what they should, in my opinion. And then creating photos or illustrations as samples. So you could, say you're building a mock-up of some kind. You do not have the final photography. You don't have the final illustrations. So you can use them as samples or placeholder images. Of course, maybe you want to use the finals as well. Maybe if you get good at this, you'll use them as finals. But, it's super helpful for this processing of things where you're kind of going through and you just need, placeholder text and placeholder images that look good and look believable, but they're not finalized yet, for example. Customized persona profiles photos, because I don't know about you, but every time I see a persona profile, it's usually the same images from Unsplash. There's 5 or 10 of them that it seems like everybody always uses. So you can make a customized one and make a new one, and something that looks more realistic. By the way, you can also make persona profile images that are for provisional profiles. So if you had a provisional persona profile and you didn't want a photography, you want more of an illustration, because that kind of symbolizes that the persona profile is not researched, but it is still a persona profile of what you expect a typical persona for this product might be. So you can make a variety of different kinds of persona profile photos. And so if you did have a persona profile photo, or a photo that you liked, maybe one of those ones from Unsplash or something, you could take that photo and make it into a drawing. So you could use it for a provisional persona profile photo image. And then collaging 2 or more images together. So usually what you do with that is that you pull the image in. I'll show you how to do this, and you can use the AI to remove the background, and then you can collage, for example, a person onto a background. So you could have an image of a city, and then you have an image of a person, and you put that person into the city, and it'll pull those things together for you. And then you can use Visual Electric also for upscaling. So if you have each image that you create from these AI tools, usually relatively small, maybe 1,000 pixels or so, 800 to 1,000, depending on what tool you use. And so you can upscale within Visual Electric. I'll also show you another upscaling tool. And you can upscale in Visual Electric also with creativity. So if you like the image, you want to see it bigger, but you also want to see something like this, but a little bit more creative, something that is along these lines, but I want to see what else you can make. You can use it for what they call creative upscaling, and there's a little slider for how much creativity you want to give it. So I'll show you that as well. And then the other thing about Visual Electric is they have what's called moods, and these are AI models that are trained in different styles of imagery. So I had made this before the days that Visual Electric had typography available inside of its app. I had drawn all these little, that's why these are sketched like these. I had just hand drawn the letter forms here in there to label all these different styles. But these are some different kind of drawing styles that they have, and you can see how they start to become like a little family of images. This was all the same prompt, which was a woman walking into a cat cafe. So I used all these different styles to create all these different images. And so you could pick a style that you like, and you could try it out with the same prompt and start picking a style that you like. And so these are also the black and white. Well, at least this one has a little bit of color, but mostly they're black and white images. You can also choose. You can also tell it not to use any color too. I'll show you how to do that. And then a couple of best practices for text-to-image prompting. Keep it simple and be specific. Doesn't necessarily have to be simple, and it doesn't have to be short, but it should be fairly straightforward, clear. Or maybe a better word would be clear, and be specific about what you want. If you want a man, you might want to say, racially diverse, or if you don't care what kind of man it is and you don't want to get just white males, then the AI has its bias, as we've figured out. So the AI has its biases, so you might want to say racially diverse, for example, which is the second point there, if you want to get better representation. Or you could say, I want, a tall, thin woman with long blonde hair, or I want a person of, whatever Japanese descent or whatever. So you can be very specific about exactly what you want. You can also specify the colors that you want. If you were working on an illustration for a brand that had a particular set of colors, you can specify that aspect ratio. You can also say what to leave out, to make sure, for example, say you wanted an image of, a street in New York City, but you didn't want any people on the street, because, likelihood is it would probably show pedestrians if you asked it for a street in New York City. So if you wanted to say no people, you can put that under the exclusion part of this app. And then you can choose your mood or your style of image that you want to get out of it, from photography to illustration. And there's all the kinds of styles in there. I'll show you. They have, I don't know how many they have. They have lots. They have dozens and dozens of them. They're kind of amazing how many moods they have in there. And then don't forget to iterate. This is still a design process. And just like with the writing that I mentioned that you'll get out of Gemini, you want to kind of customize for yourself, as much as possible, make something that isn't just, standard. So especially if it is not just for internal use, if this is actually going to be shown to the public, then try your best to do something that, looks profesh. And then, yes, I would also say enjoy the serendipity of the AI, and have fun. Because sometimes it gives you stuff that you go, oh, I didn't think of that. It's so wonderful. And it can just be very beautiful and interesting. So yeah, have fun with it. It's fun. And the last tool is called Topaz Gigapixel. You can find it at topazlabs.com. This is the one that I use. They have a couple different programs here at Topaz Labs. This is the one that I use because I think it was the only one they had at the time I got it. And this is a way of upscaling images. So you can put a pretty small image in here, and you can see you have all these different kinds of controls about how you can upscale it. So I'll show you how to use some of these tools to upscale your images. This used to be pretty much impossible in the old days. If you needed a larger image from a small image, it was just pixels. So it's kind of nice that we have these tools now, because I remember the days when that really was not possible. And what's Gigapixel, the upscaler, good for? So upscaling without AI creativity. So as I mentioned, we can do upscaling in Visual Electric as well, but usually it will change the image a little bit. You can turn the creativity all the way down in Visual Electric and see what you get. It's usually pretty good, but Gigapixel is particularly good with scaling and just making another image that's true to the original image. And you can retain quite a lot of detail with Gigapixel. I found if you play with the settings enough on every image, usually you can keep the detail pretty well. And then the other thing that's really good with Gigapixel that I noticed is that a lot of the other upscalers, they turn, if you had a photograph of a real person that you wanted to upscale, a small photograph, small resolution photograph, Gigapixel has a setting, and I think you can see it over here. Oh, maybe it's cropped off of here, but I will show you it when we get to it. But there is a facial slider that you can say, hey, I would like you to retain the humanity of this image, because a lot of times what happens when they upscale is that they start looking like the dolls. The face looks like plastic and stuff like this. So it kind of retains the human skin quality and the naturalness of the human in the photograph, if you do have a person in the photograph. And then the other nice thing I think about Gigapixel is that you get a preview of the image before you commit. So you do not have to just, kind of just wait for it to generate this upscaled image and then figure out that, oh, hey, I don't like that one, I gotta try again. So there was another tool, or there is another tool called Magnific.ai. And in that case, also much more expensive, and you just have to take your chances. And then every time you take a chance and say, hey, give me an upscale, it may or may not be what you want, and then you've used up some of your monthly quota, So Gigapixel, one of the other great things about it, in my opinion, is that it's actually not a subscription, so you don't have to pay month by month. You just buy this as a standalone app, or it even comes as a Photoshop plugin or a Lightroom plugin if you use Lightroom. I haven't used it as a plugin, but you just pay once, and then you can just use it for a year with all upgrades that they do in that year. And then after that, they'll start bugging you and saying, like, do you want to buy the upgrade? But you can still use it without buying the upgrade, which I have been doing lately. So here's something that I was thinking of. Hopefully we have enough time to go through all these steps, but I think we will, because like I say, these AI tools are pretty quick. With Gemini, will generate some ideas and names for a new product or feature. Actually, I've already done that, and I've pre-done this part so that we can just get started. And then let's see, we'll write some user interview questions based on this new idea for an app that I have, and we'll develop that into a complete user interview script. And then you can use Gemini to summarize and distill all your interview transcripts. So I have some fake interview transcripts that I use Gemini to generate some fake interview transcripts so that I can pour them in there and show you how it can distill all that into bullet points. And then I'll also use Gemini to write a 4 to 6 panel storyboard. And then I'll use Visual Electric to draw the accompanying storyboard images. And then I'll go back to Gemini to develop a user persona for this. I think I have a provisional persona in one of these steps as well. And then Visual Electric also to generate a provisional or final persona profile photo. And then lastly, I'll show you how to take any of those images that you generated and upscale them in Gigapixel, and hopefully I'll remember to do that in Visual Electric for you as well. So that's that. I will go over to Gemini. Here it is at gemini.google.com. As I mentioned, I kind of pre-made, so I didn't want to have to, have you guys watch me typing. So I made a few prompts here that I'm going to give to Gemini. So this is the first one. I have a new idea for an app. It's called Gems. It's for travelers to find hidden gems in a new city where they're traveling. And so here's my prompt. Hi, Gemini, I have an idea for a new app. It's called Gems, Happy Hunting Wherever You Go. And it's a mobile app that offers curated scavenger hunts designed to lead tourists to discover lesser known areas and local favorites. So I'm going to ask it first. I'm just going to ask for its opinion. What do you think, Gemini? So here I am just getting a little advice. And it's very encouraging very often, but it will also tell you when you're off base, but it's very nice about it. And so here's why. Your Gems app sounds great, Carolina. It fills a gap. It has an engaging format, customization, has a local focus. There's rewards, and then other things to consider. So this is another thing that's so great about Gemini, which I don't think the other chat apps do as much, is that it actually gives you some additional context and additional things. So I don't know, I think it's just very thorough and nice. So I really like it. I'm going to move along and I'm going to ask it to help me with a little ideating. Okay. Oops. Notice it does that a lot of times when I'm typing. Thanks. Now I'm going to ask it, will you help me come up with 3 to 5 user interview questions? I'll say for my new Gems app. Here's some user interview questions to help you understand your target audience for the Gems app. So it even gives you even more context around your own questions. So this is kind of nice. So tell me about your travel style. When you visit a new city, what are you most interested in seeing or doing? And then it tells you why it's suggesting this question, for example. So like I say, I actually find this to be very, thorough in the way it answers you. And then here's where I can find the drafts. So here's a different way of answering the question. So this is the first one. That's the second draft. You can see this one, it put the questions first. It kind of bolded them. So you'll see it also even, restyles it a little bit with different ways of, organizing itself. And then here's another one that's more like what I kind of expected it to do, is just a simple list of questions. So I might choose this one just because I didn't read through carefully, but I'll just choose this third one. And then what I'll say is, great. Will you help me work up a complete script for my interview? That includes, I won't say the following question. That includes the above set of questions. Look at that. Introduction, 1 to 2, and it even gave me, I didn't even ask it, and it gave me these, how long it's going to take me to do these questions. So amazing, right? So I don't know if you're as impressed as I am, but I just think it's just so perfect for this kind of thing. Once again, I would be reading this and editing this and saying, okay, I don't want to ask it like that. I want to change this word. I might reword it, retype it, put it back in and say, what do you think again? And it would tell me whether I skipped anything or whether I should change something or why it disagreed with what I changed, for example. And then it even gives me a little few tips about, doing my user interviews. So there you go. And it even mentions that I can feel free to tailor it. Well, yeah, thanks a lot, AI. I knew I could do that. And then let's see. So I'm going to now ask it to create for me a little provisional persona, because of course I haven't done my interviews yet. I just have my script. I haven't found my real people to interview yet. But I'm going to ask it to give me a little provisional persona for this idea, my GEMS mobile apps. Let's see how it does. Here's Sarah. She's an explorer. She's 28. She's a marketing associate. She's in Seattle. Here's her bio, her goals and needs, etc., etc. And then once again, I can also check my drafts. I see provisional persona. There's Sarah. They gave her a last name in this one, for example, so you can kind of compare them and see which ones you like. This is pretty good, but maybe I would like to make it shorter. I'll see what they give me. Here's a shortened version because it's only provisional, so maybe I just want a few things. It's quite a lot shorter. Check the drafts. Maybe that's not quite as short. And that's a medium size. I kind of like draft 2, medium. Also, I can, by the way, you can help train the app. If it really did a great job, you can give it a thumbs up. You can give it a thumbs down if it wasn't very good. Share and export, and then double check response on Google. If you were looking for a response to a question, what historically happened in XYZ of a time period or something, or for such and such an event, you can double check on Google. So, and let's see what's under here. Copy your text, and then you can also report it if it did something bad. Okay. So let's see here. I can say the next thing I'll show you how to do is if we imagine that I went through, a few days later, I come back to Gemini after I have all my user interviews. And let's see, let me copy in my whole text of I have 4 different user interviews. Let me get all this text. And I got actually, I'm going to try doing all 4 of them at once and see how it does. Usually I try to do them one by one, but it's really good at parsing a ton of text. So here's my long group of user interviews, and I am going to ask it to put it into a series of bullet points. So, oops, I go to the top of this. Here's my question. I did my user interviews, and here's the transcripts of them. Will you help me distill each one of them down into 3 to 5 bullet points? And these, can be very helpful just to have a summary. So there's my long text of all the interviews, and you can imagine it might even be quite a lot longer than that. If it was a lot longer, I might split it up into 4 different questions just so that I didn't overwhelm it. Now, but we'll see how it does if we ask it to do this one long text. There you go. Pretty good, right? Are you guys feeling like this is very handy for what you might need to do? I hope so. So anyway, there you go. And once again, I can look at my drafts and see what it gives me like this. And if I wanted to have it be less of bullet points, I could ask it to make it longer this time. For example, say I wanted some paragraphs and not just bullet points. Let's see if it does it. Still gives me bullet points, but they're a little bit more played out, looks like. So, okay. And then what was the other thing I was going to show you in Gemini? Oh, yeah. So let's try using this for creating a storyboard. I said, thanks. Will you help me write a short script for a user story for a storyboard, 4 to 6 panels about a user like Jamal, the grad student, this last one here, who loves to travel. I don't know what the successfully is doing in there. User like Jamal, grad student, loves to travel using my GEMS app. Okay, let's try it. I haven't tried it. I haven't never tried this one before to actually write a story script. Panel 1. Jamal stands in his apartment surrounded by travel brochures and a backpack. He looks excited and overwhelmed. Thought bubble. So many places to see, so little time. How can I make this trip epic? Huh. Panel 2, Jamal sits on a park bench, scrolling through his phone with a frown. Travel apps are open on the screen. Ugh, these apps are all the same. Same tours, same museums, been there, done that. Cool. That looks pretty good, actually. Gemini, not surprised, actually. Here's panel 1. This one doesn't have, it has a little different formatting. Ah, they sent him to Barcelona. He's at the Sagrada Familia. Okay. And he finishes his challenge. This one sent him to Paris, it looks like. Hidden cafes, local markets. I see. So he gives you the cap. This one's nice because it has the captions with it. So. And then, yeah, he logs in and gets a digital badge for completing a challenge. Okay, great. I think that one's really nice. And then I will ask it to create my final user persona based on, we'll say, the above key information from my interviews with 4 users. So above this one where we had this summary here. The great thing about these ones, the text-to-text AIs, is that you can have a single conversation and it reads the whole conversation, so you can reference things that you said earlier, which is really nice. Alex represents the ideal user for the GEMS app, a curious and adventurous traveler seeking unique and authentic experiences in new cities. Okay. So I would probably change this one to Alex P, for example, or just Alex alone, in order to make sure Gemini didn't get confused. It didn't happen this time, but let's see. I'll try something like that. I'll put it in. I'll say, okay. Let's see if I can give you the error, show you what it does when it has an error message. Is Alex Park married? Okay. It did not react badly to that because it's just usually sometimes it will say, sorry, if you put a first and last name, maybe it didn't find any private citizens named Alex Park. But sometimes if you put a certain name in, that could be a real person, it'll just say, sorry, I'm an LLM, a large language model, and I don't have information about that person. So if you get that, it's basically an error message. So just take the name out, or just, and change it into this persona, something like that. You could say, is this persona married, for example? And so you could do that. If you got an error message, you could just change this, is this person married, for example. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, you can make your own decision then. And so this one actually also just Gemini didn't give us any results on that. So let's imagine that now we have all this content for our project, and we go over to Visual Electric. Here I am in Visual Electric. You have your inspiration page here is where I started. My canvases, you can see how I have all these different canvases that I've already been working on. This is your inspiration. These are images that other people made. So if you see an image on here that you like and you would like to start from, you can also remix their image. It tells you what prompt they used, and it tells you what style that they selected for this image. So it can even just give you ideas as far as that goes. I think if you have a paid professional subscription, your images won't show up on here. They'll be private. But if you are under the free plan, then your images are going to be in this feed of images. And these are featured ones. There's ones that are just photography here. Fine art, you can see how they have different styles here. Like I say, Visual Electric is really good with having the ability to make things in all kinds of styles pretty quickly and easily. There's illustrations, crafts. This one sometimes has like collages and these kind of 3D. That one's called clay. So you can see all those. And then these ones, which are called digital illustrations or digital styles. So there's a little sushi, for example. Also, Visual Electric has a community area. So if you run into anything, you can actually ask the community over here. Or you can introduce yourself and just start sharing your images and looking at and talking to other people who are also using the product. Let's see, what else can I show you? I'll look at the canvases that I have here. So I can start a new canvas over here, or I'm going to just go to this one that I had already started to show you. I'll show you this one, which is the one that I had in my presentation. Command plus just brings you up, and then you're just scrolling around in this infinite space. And so these are the cat cafe, woman walking into a cat cafe. I really love this stipple style, actually. But you can see there's all these different styles just within Visual Electric for making storyboard images. And there's even a style just called storyboard, so that one's kind of handy. I think I see a question over there. Do I use the free version? No, because I was so good with Visual Electric that I won a year's subscription. So yeah, I don't have to use the free version. So here's some images that I started making. This was a retired person. One of my personas was, I think, a guy named David in my list of the 4 interviews. So one was an older retired person who liked to travel. So I had made some of these images. I can zoom in on them a little bit. And this one I used a style called Head Cut. I'll show you that one. It's under illustrations. These are all grouped by style on the side, but Head Cut is like this Wall Street Journal style illustrations. So it's kind of nice. And then this is the other one that I kind of like, is Stipple Link, although sometimes the Stipple Link gives you a little bit of an unusual drawing style. And then Storyboard is the one that's kind of designed for storyboards. So here's some different ones. Here he is, he's arriving. I put him in traveling to Venice myself, and he found a nice off the beaten path cafe. So this was my little storyboard that I had created for him. And I think I have it, I guess I don't have it in this canvas. Let's see, I put my little storyboard here, this one. So the thing that happened with Visual Electric is that it started being able to have some text inside here. So I can, add a text box with using my little text tool here. So I can just add a text box and say, and you have to edit over here, it looks like. Oops. Maybe I should actually put something useful in there that I might like. Gems app. And you can change your typeface, for example. So I started making this little storyboard with this guy. And then I clicked on this image, and I'll click out, we'll start with it. Let's start with a different one. How about this one? And let's not say a retired man. Let's try to go for Jamal, which was a graduate student. And I think they had sent him to Barcelona as a tourist, enjoying, we'll say, the view of Sagrada Familia. I think that's how you spell it. Let's give it a shot. By the way, I started from that image, but I did not have to do that. I could have started just from the prompt alone. Just have this canvas over here. I'm going to pull these guys over here. You can see it's building the images right now. I forgot to do something. You can definitely upload an image as a base, for sure you can. There he is. When you see something like this happen, sometimes it means, oh, that one came up. But sometimes when you'll see like a fuzzy image, and sometimes it just doesn't create one of the 4 or something, you can just delete it. And this, once again, it works copy paste. It works exactly like every other app that you've ever used. You can use Option and make another copy of it. Yeah, so it's kind of amazing that it's really, like I say, designed for designers. So it's super helpful. And yes, I can pull in an image from my computer onto this canvas. For example, here's one. I just happen to have this one sitting here. This was an AI generated image, but I could start with this image, and I could, for number 1, I could generate a prompt from this image that I pulled in from my canvas, because I did not, create this in Visual Electric. This one I created in Visual Electric, so it knows what my prompt was. This one, I can generate a prompt for it. It takes a couple seconds here. A mother and child enjoying a sunny day in the park, vintage photo aesthetic. Okay, I can use no style, or I can add a style. So say once again, I want to change this into more of a storyboard style, for example. I'm just going down this little rabbit hole for this thing separate from my Gems app. And then I think I will do this one as a square. And here's where I can change what colors are used. So say I just wanted this to be a black and white drawing in a storyboard style. And I could say exclude. I will not exclude anything for now, but if there was something I wanted to exclude, and I can give it a shot, so let's see what it gives us. And then with this one, I'll delete these extra copies. With this one, I'm going to try to get back to Jamal. That's not too bad maybe for Jamal here. Graduate student, I kind of like that one. But one thing I didn't do when I did this was my racially diverse. Or if I just wanted, Jamal to be of a certain descent, I could just add that into the prompt and I don't have to say racially diverse, right? I can also copy this up into this top and it will just start a brand new, it won't be starting from another image. And once again, I can also, if I didn't want a sketch style, I could do photography. I can change the proportions of this. So once again, I think I'll do square and colors. Well, let's not do photography. Let's do it maybe a different one. How about a charcoal drawing? Let's give it a shot. It just gives me some more. So not a bad grouping here, I think, for what it gives you. Let's see if there's any other questions coming up. Does it always give you 4 options? It does always give you 4 options, unless I was to say, for example, I still like this one the best out of these guys. If I wanted to do my upscaling. So detailed upscale, it once again gives me my prompt. If I don't like anything in this prompt, I can edit the prompt at this point. I can reduce creativity down to 0 and just say, basically, I just want a bigger resolution, higher resolution version of this same image. And I can go up by 2 times, 3 times, or 4 times. And then in this case, I'll just max it out and see what happens. I'll just try to get the exact same image, but 4 times larger. So I'll click on that and you can see how that's going to build. Let's see what happened with this lady in the park. Oh, a little too photographic, in my opinion, right? But I could, of course, keep going and I could try either editing this in some way, or I could start from one of these if it's getting closer, and I could edit this one so that, it was starting from a black and white photo. It might do a little bit better job making a drawing out of it. This one's kind of a drawing, but it's not that great of a drawing, in my opinion. So you can see how sometimes it's not obedient to do what you want. So you just have to, like I say, you just have to iterate on it. And by the way, sometimes these upscales can take a little while. If you had a full color photograph, this one is just black and white, so it may go fairly quickly. But if you did have black and white or at full color, you might be waiting a little, and you go up by 4 times, you might be waiting a little while. Pretty good, right? So there you got a nice high resolution image. If you needed to use it somewhere where you needed high resolutions, you could use that. And then we're coming down to last few minutes. I wanted to show you some other things. Of course, you can play with these tools as well. For example, there's a part of this image that oops, maybe I have to use a smaller image. It doesn't want to retouch that one. If there was a part of this image that I wanted to get out of here, I could, cover it up and then, tell it what I wanted there instead, right? Something like that. And I can change the brush size that I use to undo it. And then I can also make variations on this image. So I like this image, but I want to see some variations. And once again, I can increase or decrease creativity on that. So let's blend those guys down there. And then this is where you could remove the background. So for example, if I like this image of this woman and her child in the park, I could say remove background. And that one also, sometimes you can see it kind of processing there. So you can see that it sometimes takes a little while to get that background removed. And that's how I could put, for example, this woman in some other background. So here she is again. I could take this. Oops. You can use the control key and say move forward. Oops, maybe I did it the other way. Control, move forward. Oh, move, send backwards. Okay, here she is. For example, Let's try to get her in there instead of him, for example. Then I select both these images and I say collage. I can optionally describe, it's going to just collage these two things together. Creativity to the reference to the original images, a lot or a little. Maybe I'll turn that down because I actually would like it to be a little bit more creative and kind of make the photography and the drawing kind of go together a little bit better. Let's not do photography. Let's change it to, I think we were on storyboard images. I want it more like the background. Image colors. I don't have to tell it because it's already black and white, but I'll just remind it. For example, I could add a color too, give it a little like sepia tone to it, for example, and we could check it out. See what happens. And when it makes the variations on that one, it's going to make it at that larger size, which sometimes ends up, being a big chunk of your canvas. So I want to also change to show you quickly the Topaz Gigapixel, but I need to change what I'm sharing. And I'll disable my screen sharing for a moment and share again. A different window. This one. So here's the Topaz Gigapixel interface. The creativity just means how much the AI will insert itself into whatever you tell it, whether it's like, a lot different than the original or not very different from the original. We can go back there before we end the event and just take a look at what it did, because I didn't have a chance to look at those results. But this is Topaz Gigapixel, so I just have this image in here, and you can do also by multiples of the original, or you can say how wide you would like the image to be. In this case, I made it 5,000. Or you can say how tall it will be. It's this. If the width was 5,000, it's giving me 2,800. So if I wanted the height to be 3,000, then I guess it's not responding to that. But the original, I don't know why it had that other number in there. So if I do not want to make any decisions, I can just turn this on, and the AI will actually give me what it recommends for this image. It will read the image and give me what it recommends. If I don't want it to, or if I just want to override that, I can just click lines, which is a weird one. Lines is usually would be used for an image that had a lot of lines in it, like a drawing. Art and CG, you can kind of see how it's changing the image and updating it as you click these different ones. HQ, I'm not entirely sure what that works. It's like if you did have a high resolution image, but for some reason you want it even more high, I think. This is if you had a very pixelated image. Low res will really clean it up quite a lot. Or very compressed. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is between those, but you can see how you have all these different tools. And then you can suppress the noise more or less. If you want to retain your details, for example, sometimes I have an AI image that's a work of art, and I actually like the fact that it has some graininess to it. So I can suppress the noise a lot, and you can see how it's really smoothing that jacket out, so I'm not getting that texture of her jacket, and it's starting to look a little bit more fake, right? So usually you don't want to go all the way. Usually, no matter what, you want to kind of give yourself a little bit of flexibility in there. And then you can also, if there is blurring, in this case, the background is very blurred, but she's in focus in the front. So if you want to remove the blur, you can, adjust this slider. And then this is the part where you can get a little bit better job of not getting something that looks like a doll or like a fake plastic face, where you have face recovery. So I'm not exactly sure why they call it face recovery, but this is a little thing you can turn on or off. So turn it back on whenever you have a person in there so that you don't get a person that looks like a toy or a piece of plastic, a plastic doll, So, and you can turn it way up, and we can see it's updating as I work on it, So that actually does look a little bit more human to me, and we can turn it down and see how it looks more plastic. So it might be subtle on this scale, but in any case, hopefully you can see that. But that's what you want to do if you start getting, you want to use this face recovery if you start getting images of human beings that don't look realistic like you want them to be, but you still need an upscaled image of that. So as I mentioned, this one's pretty easy to use. I would probably use the standard for this. I probably would suppress the noise. I'd probably remove the blur a little bit. Probably wouldn't worry about fixing the compression. I might even just try what the AI recommends me. for all this stuff. And then with face recovery, I might not do 100%. Maybe I'll just do 95% or so. You can also type in there. And then I would just save this image, and it asks you where you want to save it. And it takes a few seconds. It's super fast, and you get a beautiful upscaled image. And I would have to share my desktop in order to show you that, but because I don't think, oh, here it is. This is the same one. I can just go back to it, but it's the same one that I previewed. So you would just get a high res 3000 pixel tall image of this original one. And then I will once again, a couple minutes left. If you have any questions, be sure to ask before time is up. Let's see. Most AI software is charges or free software to use to practice. Well, I think all of them allow you to do a few images at least to practice. You know, to just there's free. Like usually it's a few images per day. Oh, so there's one more. How often do you need to upscale? Well, up to you. I mean, if you don't need it upscaled, maybe you're just using it small, or you're just using it for a slide presentation, or online or something, and you don't need it to be large. But if you need something that was previously small to be large, then I think designers often needed upscaling in the past, and we just had to suffer. Let's see. And then Kevin's asking, is there a way to change the style without it entirely changing the image? Keep parts of it, but in a new style. Yes, you certainly can. So let me go back and show you that. Change my sharing. This one doesn't allow me to share multiple windows, so I have to change it one by one. Window. Let's go back to this one. Okay, so there's the one where she became part of the background, where we got the baby into the image. And then you want to change the style without it entirely changing the image. Yes, so if I click on this guy and then I change this one to, I'm doing remix on this one, we will try. Let's do photography and see what it does. I like black and white photography. How about that? And let's try it with remixing first. And then I will also try the other way. I'll do it with variations, and I'll turn creativity way down. And let's do photography. We'll draw in black and white. We'll do black and white photography again and see if it gives you what you were asking about there. Not quite the same character. But it's another one where I could potentially do a collage, right? I could get the right character. And if I liked one of these images, I could probably get the right character and see. But yeah, it did not keep the character there. Oh, this one, I turned the creativity way down, and so it did not respond to the idea of it being a black and white photograph. So you can do it. It might not be very good at it. Let's turn the creativity up a little bit and see if that works. I'll add, let's see if it gets a little closer, possibly. Let's see. Just with some thinking about. I'm not sure what they mean. Okay, has there been any pushback or pitfalls to using these AI tools at work? Maybe, I don't know, you better ask your company before you bother. And then, yeah, well, that's a good question. I don't know, you can see how, I've been using this for a long time, and I'm having a little trouble getting this image to go from being a drawing to being a photograph. And so, it takes time. No matter what, it takes time. Somebody's got to do it if it needs to be done. And so, yeah, and it's not something that everybody can just walk in and do on the first day. I mean, otherwise there wouldn't have been hundreds of people signed up for this event today, because it's a little intimidating for most people. So I've heard people being scared of that the client says, oh, as soon as the client knows that, this is so easy and all they got to do is X, Y, and Z. It's kind of like, well, I mean, maybe the early days of, software, like, InDesign, Photoshop, that sort of thing. You're like, oh boy, it's so easy. The client's gonna be able to do it. Well, actually, these are the early days of these tools. These tools are going to get more and more complex. So get in there, learn it, be an expert, and eventually you're going to be, you're going to still have valuable skills, but your skills are going to have to change with, the technology that's changing. You're going to have to know, I think, how to use these tools in order to, prove your value, and to be able to do a better job than what your client can possibly do. But what you're going to find is just like anything, sometimes it's that the client comes along and says, hey, I made this kind of little thing in Canva, and I need you to, they might give you their ideas. They might use an AI tool and say, hey, and maybe that just helps clarify what they want, So who knows? But, I think it is, yet again, just something else to kind of know how to do. So thank you guys so much for coming. It's pretty good timing. We made it, 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock in my time. You are very, very welcome. Thank you so much for coming.